You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Kimberly Beam Holmes. The 4 science-based ways to 100% know if you should rule him in or rule him out. Ladies, welcome to Life Check Yourself. I am so excited to talk to Kimberly Beam Holmes because I'm living with my damn husband in 40 feet. And if there were ever a person who I could talk to today, someone who has a website called marriagehelper.com is my best friend. Welcome, Kimberly. I'm happy that you're here.
Oh my goodness, Marni. I am so excited to be here and could not help but crack up when you said that because I thought, yeah, like if my husband and I were living in 40 feet together, it would be a journey. It would be a roller coaster, ups and downs for sure.
It totally is. So let me tell people about you. So Kimberly has applied her master's degree in psychology for over 10 years. She's the CEO of Marriage Helper and the host of her own podcast called It Starts With Attraction. She's a wife and a mom. She's been researching the ways that attraction affects people personally and the relationships that they hold to their heart. She's got a massive following. Her videos, podcast reaches over 200,000 people a month who are making changes and becoming the best that they can be. And she's working on her PhD. Damn, you go, girl, in psychology. And she lives in Franklin, Tennessee. And I just was in Tennessee and I love it with her husband, Rob, and her 2 beautiful children from India. So you're amazing.
I don't know about that, but I do have a full and fun life. Let's just put it that way.
That's so cool. So where's Franklin?
Oh my goodness. It's just south of Nashville. Where did you go when you were in Tennessee?
I'm obsessed with Nashville. We were in Nashville and it's on my short list of places I could move to permanently when I'm done with this.
Listen, you don't want to move right now because everyone in the world is moving to Nashville. So wait till it stabilizes. But yeah, it's just, I'm 30 miles south of downtown Nashville.
Oh my God. Okay. We'll talk about that later, but Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's talk about, keeping a relationship alive. And yeah, it's been really interesting in the 40 feet. You know, I read this book, it's fiction. It was called The Sea Wife, Kimberly, like about a year ago, actually. And there's a line in the book, and this book is about this couple that goes on a boat, right? And she says, the ocean will show you the cracks in your marriage. And so I'm like, oh, also the highway, the pavement will show you the cracks in your marriage, which has been really, part of the challenge and also amazing. So let's just start with the beginning. So I know you have a method that you call the love path method. So what are the phases of falling and staying in love? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, before I just dive into it, one of the things I want to make sure I point out is that there really is a process to falling in love. And most people don't realize that. We kind of think it's either just chemistry or it clicks or you find your soulmate or whatever other version of that you want to say. But in reality, you could really put 2 people kind of in a room together, so to say. And if they follow this process, then they will fall in love. And the other thing about that is, since we know that this is a process, if we stop following this process at any point in our relationship or our marriage, then we can start falling out of love, even when we don't mean for that to happen. And so with the work that I do at Marriage Helper, that's what we focus a lot on. We have these couples who are married and they have stopped following the love path. They don't know that. We know that. And therefore, when they're coming to us, they're saying, my spouse wants out. I don't feel like I love them anymore, all sorts of issues. And we can point them back to, okay, well, here's what you can do to fall back in love with each other. And it also reflects the way that they fell in love in the first place. So that's where this love path model came from.
I love that.
Hey, me too. And I love it. People love it because it gives us a framework and something we can do. So it doesn't feel so hopeless and so helpless at times. Now, everything that we teach at Marriage Helper is all research based. But as I say to everyone, everything is research based, time proven, or time tested and experience proven. So we've been doing this for over 20 years. We've worked with thousands upon thousands of people, and all of this is based in research. So that's what I'm going to dive in and share with you. You want me to just go ahead and get started on the love path?
Well, let me just ask. I just want to comment because I think that people get so in their head, about like, did I do the right thing? Is this my right person? And I just got off the phone this morning with a friend of mine who's been married for like 30 years, right? And she's like, oh my God, like I'm so frustrated, blah, blah, blah. And so I think what you're saying is that whether you've been with someone for like, 6 months or 2 years or 30 years, the process is your friend.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so explain it to us, the phases.
Great. There's four steps in the love path. The first one that we'll talk about is attraction. Now, in the step of attraction, the first thing that people typically think of when they think of attraction is looks. And when you think to when, for you, either Marni or either your listeners, when we think back to when we met the person that we're with, so for me, it's my husband. When I met my husband, there were probably some physical things about him that attracted me to him. For sure there were. He was tall, he was muscular, he still is tall and muscular, right? These are all things that caught my eye. But there's way more to attraction than just what is skin deep. There's actually 4 different areas of attraction. And at Marriage Helper, we call them the pies, Pies of attraction. And we call them the pies of attraction because each of those letters actually stands for one of the aspects of attraction that we look for in a potential spouse. So the first one is physical. This is typically the first one that we see. The caveat to that would be for people who maybe meet online without seeing a picture first.
Okay.
But typically, even with that, we're typically first drawn to what we physically see about a person. But the physical part of attraction is only important for people, is only the most important. Let me say that differently. It is only the most important thing that people look for if they're only looking for a short-term relationship. So what does that mean? That means that the physical part of attraction, while it's important and it stays important for as long as we live and until the day we die, it's not about trying to be supermodel beautiful, especially if most of your listeners are women. But when I'm talking to men, I'm saying it's not about being a bodybuilder, right? It's not just about what media tells us is attractive. That's only for really people who are looking for short-term relationships. So physical attraction is all about how can I look and feel the best that I can for my age and my situation in life. So it's not about comparing yourself to someone else. It's about asking yourself, what can I do to feel better? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating right? Am I moving in a way that I like to move? All of those things will help us feel better, which overall can end up being the things that help us to look the best that we can. But that's only one small part of attraction and not the most important for a long-term relationship.
Can I ask you a question about this one?
Yes, please.
So, because I think I'm really curious that around how you feel about yourself, how that impacts all those other things, like that vibe that when you're well rested, you put yourself together, you walk into the room and you feel confident. Is that part of the physical attraction? Does that kind of like get transmuted through the air, the vibration to where someone goes, ooh, that person, I'm attracted to that person? Is that part of it?
So you're right about the confidence part. You're right about once someone can feel like they are an attractive person, it leads them to be more confident and they can walk into a room and just have people turn and stare at them, even if they're not, I don't even know who supermodels are anymore,
exactly.
But even if they're not Tyra Banks, right? So but that's all going to come into more of a picture, the more of these areas of attraction we go through. But I will say, as we're kind of sitting here, so a lot of the research I've been doing for my dissertation, for my PhD, I have been doing a lot of study on self-worth, self-esteem, because my research includes those different aspects. And when we look at the research on self-worth, we see that the more that people focus on body appearance, which is one of what's called the contingencies of self-worth. So it's kind of one of the pillars that makes up self-worth. It's only one though. There's 9. And the more that people focus on body appearance, actually, the more their self-worth decreases. It's not until they focus on these other areas of self-worth, which has nothing to do with body appearance, that their self-worth begins to increase and they end up feeling better about themselves. So that's why
amazing and fascinating. I think I need to just have you back already, just talk about that. But carry it on.
Well, so that's why I say when I talk about physical attraction, it's more about how you feel. And I'm not yet talking about how you feel in terms of confidence. I really am talking about, do you have energy?
Yeah.
Do you feel depressed? Do you feel down? Do you feel lethargic? And if so, what are the things that we can do based on evidence-based research that we know help? Eating right, getting enough sleep, reducing the stress that you have in your life, moving, doing something to move. I'm not saying you have to be a CrossFitter, a runner, whatever. Like, do whatever. Go for a walk, do Tai Chi. I don't care. Do something to move your body that you love to do. That's going to help you feel better overall.
Okay. I love it.
Yes.
Amazing.
So that's physical attraction.
Okay. That's the P of the pie.
That's the P of the pie. We're just at the first step of the love path, the first part of the first step of the love path. So the next part after that is the I, which is intellectual attraction. So in intellectual attraction, we are attracted, more long-term attracted to people who we can have conversations with and that we like talking to, that we share enough common interest and hobbies with them, that we enjoy doing things together, and that are a little bit different from us, that they have different interests that we're interested in learning about them. So let me give an example from my own marriage. So my husband and I, when we started dating, I was in college, he had graduated. And we found out really quickly that we shared the hobby of travel. We shared the hobby of being adventurous outside. So we would go kayaking together. We would go hiking. We would go on little mini day trips to the beach. We would do all of those things because those are things we loved to do together. But we also had way different interests. My husband was a history major in college and ended up joining the military. So he became an Army officer and was flying helicopters. So he was in flight school. So he was that guy. He was all about history. He was all about, military, all about politics. And I knew nothing about any of those things. But I was so interested in the things he would teach me because he knew a lot about things that I didn't know anything about. And so we had a lot of things to talk about. We had the things that we connected on, the things that we shared interest in, the shared hobbies that we had that we could connect with. But then we also had these different interests and hobbies that we were very curious about learning from the other person. And that's what we look for. We want to be with people that we can have conversations other than just the kids, the finances, the mortgage. Like those are the things that when we get married, a lot of times we revert to more of these business items and we stop being curious about the other person like we were when we were dating them. And so intellectual attraction is that second set of that second step in attraction, so to say. We want to be with people that we find fascinating and that we love having conversations with.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And note to listeners, you're not looking for your clone.
No.
Because I think people are like, they have to like everything that I like. And if they don't, then that means, it's not a match. So I love the intellectual attraction piece. Okay. What's the next part?
So the next one we go to is emotional attraction. And this one is all about evoking emotions within others that they enjoy feeling. Now, for all of these areas of attraction, there are the things that I'm responsible for, right? So I'm responsible for trying to stay as physically attractive as I can, for growing myself intellectually, continuing to have a love for learning. Emotionally, I'm responsible for, am I evoking emotions within my spouse or for some listeners, within my boyfriend, within my girlfriend, that they enjoy feeling? And then partner that we're with, our spouse or the significant other, they have a responsibility in this because that is what helps us stay attracted to them. So in emotional attraction, when we think about evoking those positive emotions, I remember when my husband and I were dating, and he was just the quintessential man of chivalry. I mean, he would open every single door for me. He paid for all of my meals and my gas when I would go see him. We had a long distance relationship, so I would have to drive 6 hours to go see him where he was in flight school. And I just remember thinking like, man, he is so different than every other guy that I've dated.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that set him apart. I loved the way he made me feel. He would send me all these super sweet text messages. We would call and talk to each other for hours on end, almost every day. And I loved the way that he made me feel. Now, I was talking with one of my friends a couple of years ago, and she was dating this guy. And summer came around. It was their first summer dating together. And she had really liked him and their relationship was going well. But once they started going to the pool together, going to the beach, he started saying things to her like, you know, you would look a whole lot better in that swimsuit if you would just lose about 15 pounds.
Oh, ouch.
Girl.
Yeah.
You want to throw an elbow, don't you? Like,
oh, yeah.
When women hear that, we're like, he did not.
Yeah.
No, he did not. And, you know, all of a sudden, he started evoking emotions within her she did not enjoy feeling. And at that moment, it didn't matter how attractive he was, how intellectually compatible they were. None of that mattered because she didn't like the way she felt around him anymore.
Yep.
This is the most important part of long-term relationships. It's emotional attraction. And this is so groundbreaking because for most people, we don't even realize that this is part of attraction, but it is what will end a relationship quicker than anything.
That makes so much sense, right? So it's like, I'm responsible for the feelings, how I make my partner feel in a positive way or a negative way, and vice versa. And that maintaining that, nurturing that, being aware of that is really part of the long-lasting formula to marriage or partnership success.
Yes. And one of the key things that we see at Marriage Helper, and I would assume this would apply to dating relationships as well, especially after you get past that 1 or 2 year mark, is we start seeing that there's a lot of people who we call it control. And so what I mean by that is we start seeing that there's one or both people in the relationship who start acting or saying things that lead the other person to feel like if I don't do what they want me to do or act the way they want me to act or say the things they want me to say, they're no longer going to, I don't feel like they're going to accept me anymore. I feel like I need to be the person they want me to be in order for us to be able to continue this relationship. And so they start to feel controlled, like they can't actually be who they want to be or who they were made to be because this other person is kind of withholding love, affection, or things like that based on the behavior of the other person. I said that a really weird way. Did that make sense to you?
No, it made such perfect sense to me. And I think that you're so brilliant because it's like unarticulated. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like something that's just happening in our brain that we may not have been able to name it. And the way you just described it and named it is huge. Now, my guess is if you can name it, then that means you can work on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. This is good. So all of you who are like, yes, oh my God, that's what's not working.
Yeah.
Pause. Okay. All right. What else? Did we get through all the pie?
No, now there's one more. So there's the S in the pies.
Pies. Okay.
Yes. And the S stands for spiritual attraction.
Ooh,
now
love that
this has to do with beliefs and values. So we are typically most attracted to people who we see as either having a similar set of beliefs and values as we do, or who we believe to have a greater set of beliefs and values than we do. Now, there's a bit of a caveat to this. So the caveat is if I were acting out. So like when I was in high school, And if I got really pissed off at my parents for some reason, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to show them, then I may start dating a guy that actually had a lower set of beliefs and values than me, because that's my way of trying to like give the middle finger to someone.
Exactly.
Right. But overall, that's typically not going to lead to a long-lasting, healthy relationship, because we really do want to be around people who we share similar sets of beliefs and values. And so that leads to, typically people get married to people who have like a similar socioeconomic background, a similar cultural background, a similar faith background, or non-faith background, because those are the things that our beliefs and values are formed around. And therefore, that's typically what we look for, consciously or subconsciously, in the person that we are looking to marry. So spiritual attraction is all about, do we share a similar set of beliefs and values, and will we align our lives around what those beliefs and values are?
I think this is really huge. And I have a daughter in her, she's like going to be 27, but my other daughter who's 24 has a boyfriend. And I think this is that thing that they're constantly checking in with, right? Like, do we have the same values? Do we love adventure? Are we wanting to explore and travel? Or are you a person who's like, yeah, I'm ready to like settle down and have babies tomorrow? Or, right? Like what's your vision for family in the future? And I think that, do you think that people start out with the vision, and that sometimes, is that what it's called, growing apart? Like when your vision or your values or your beliefs don't grow at the same rate?
I'm going to talk about growing apart more in one of the other steps of the love path.
Okay.
But it can lead to a disconnect.
Okay.
Before it leads to a growing apart. Because if you're not aligned on, we saw this, we're still seeing this in the past 2.5 years, right? So many different things came up over the past 2.5 years, where even people who are married, maybe married for 20, 30 years, started having very different sets of beliefs and values about different things, right? Just pick whatever it is, because you could throw a dart at it and pick something.
Yeah.
It started to lead to not just disconnect, but the fact that so many things were so emotionally charged. In general, in society, there's been a lack of turning towards other people with curiosity and understanding, and leading with empathy and trying to understand why those things are important to them or why they see it that way. Instead, there's just been a wall that's gone up with defensiveness and critique and criticism. And that's how right now in the world, we are treating differences in beliefs and values. That is not the way to do it in any healthy relationship, right? The idea is, listen, even if we don't have the same set of beliefs and values, how can I lean into you as a person, as a human being who has value, and just understand your viewpoint? And even if I don't agree, how can I show you respect? And when we start to not feel respected in our relationships, that's actually, from the research, one of the top 3 reasons that relationships end, because people don't feel liked, loved, or respected.
Wow, that's so fascinating. So, I told you I'm like living on the road, and I'm living in this RV. So I'm meeting like lots of different couples, obviously. And I was just telling my husband the other day, I would say, of the people that don't do this full time, 90% of the people we meet, when we talk about doing it full time, the husband will sort of like roll his eyes, look at his wife and be like, well, that's what I want, but she won't do it. Right. And I think that when I look at my own journey in doing this with my husband, like his beliefs and value of freedom, I was making him sort of like wrong for that, until I really started looking at my own belief and values and realized that I was afraid of freedom because I was afraid to change. Right. I just wanted to stay the same, but I realized that was stuck. But what's interesting is that I leaned toward that rather than being like, la, 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 stop talking about it. Like, I just, no, 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 no. And it's really interesting just seeing these other couples on the road that they're in their like empty nest years, or they're heading toward retirement, and they both have a different vision. And that eye rolling situation, right, is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Okay. I'm going to get to that in a minute.
I keep taking you further down the path. You're like, girlfriend, we're still in the pies. We're in the bakery right now. Okay.
Attraction. but we'll start moving on. So that summarizes it. So it's physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual attraction.
Okay.
This is what initially attracts us to a person, but it's what keeps us attracted to a person throughout the life of the relationship as well.
Okay.
And it's what keeps them attracted to us. So that's the first step.
Write those down, people. Rewind, listen again, share with your friends. Okay, keep going.
All the things. Definitely share with your friends. And so then we move on to the second step of the love path, because attraction leads us to want to move closer.
Okay.
When we get to that second step, it's what we call acceptance. So we know we're attracted to the person. Again, let's go back to the beginning of a relationship and how it forms. So we know we're attracted to them. We start going out. We've gone on a couple of dates, but now we have to decide, okay, I've seen more of this person. I know more about them. Is this someone who I can accept them as they are without wanting them to change? Typically, what happens is that women marry men believing that they'll change. And men marry women believing they're never going to change. But here's the truth of it. All of us are going to change.
Yes.
As we continue to grow, as life happens, as we continue to learn and do all of these things, we're dynamic people and we're going to continue to change. But can you continue? Is this a person that you can continue to treat with love, respect, and acceptance, even if they don't change into who you want them to be? Can you accept them for who they are and who they have been created to be? And can you treat them that way without those controlling behaviors coming in, without trying to get them to do what you want them to do? That is the bottom line of the second step of the love path, which is acceptance.
I love that. That's so peaceful and also profound.
Mm-hmm. It's what we all want, right? We want to know that our spouse can know everything about us, that I can share at Marriage Helper, we call them bricks. We give this illustration of, we've all since childhood built up a wall around us to protect ourselves because people have hurt us. And so every time a hurtful incident or a trauma of some kind or things like that happen, we just put up more bricks. And on the other side of that wall of bricks, we paint a picture of who we believe other people want us to be. But it's not the real us. The real us is behind those bricks, protected, because we fear that if the other person knew who we truly were, there's no way we would be accepted that way. That's what situations told us over time. And so we've protected ourselves. But when I enter into my marriage, I want to be able to tell my husband all of those things. I want to share with him every single one of those bricks until I'm left completely exposed, him holding all of these bricks and me knowing I trust him. He's not going to try and throw those bricks back at me. He's not going to share them with another person. He's not going to do any of those things. He's going to hold my bricks. He's going to cherish my bricks. He's going to make sure I don't have to put my bricks up again. And he's going to accept me for who I am. Fully known, fully loved. Because it's not until I can break all those bricks down that when my husband says, I love you, that I believe it fully. Because if I still have half a wall up and he says that he loves me, I only believe it half as much because there's still part of me thinking, but if you knew the rest, you wouldn't.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really amazing. And I'm sure if we had more time, but can you give me one, is there a way that you can turn toward that acceptance, or how we can think about it when we fall into the trap of starting to judge or control?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give an example of a situation that happened several years ago. And so my dad is a sexologist. And in the Nashville area, a couple of years ago, he went on to one of the top 40 stations during weekday mornings, and he would call and take relationship questions. And one of the relationship questions he got one day was from this guy that called in, and he said, so I need help getting on a second date because I can never seem to get past the first date.
Okay.
So my dad asked him, okay, well, tell me what's happening on the first date. He said, well, you see, I feel like I need to be completely honest with them on the first date. So I tell all of them that I'm a cross-dresser.
Oh.
All right. We weren't quite expecting that. And for whatever reason, they don't want to go on a second date with me. And so my dad asked him, already knowing what the answer would be, but he said, so tell me, why are you a cross-dresser? And the guy said, it's because when I was young, my dad would beat me, but he never touched my sister. So when I'm dressed like a girl, I feel safe. And so the recommendation back to him was, then tell that story. Don't do it on the first date, because you don't even know if you like this person anyway, right? Like, wait until the relationship is advanced a bit, that see if this is even a person that you can trust. And then when the time comes, don't just tell the fact about what you do. Tell the story and the feelings behind why you're doing it. And then go from there. Because once you hear the story, all of our thoughts about that man change that quick. It turns into compassion and empathy and, oh my goodness, how did you even get through something like that? Right.
Yeah.
And so that's one way that you do it. So our tendency, when we know the facts, when we know just the thing that we hear that we don't want to hear or that we don't like, the tendency is to judge and to condemn and all of those things. But if we can dig deeper with curiosity into, okay, well, what are the feelings behind it? That's going to tell us more about the person and their reaction to it than what the facts tell us on the surface level. And it's also when you can get to the feelings behind, and we'll take a different example, like if it's something someone did that they're sharing with you, and it's something they're ashamed about, embarrassed about, that happened in their past. And like maybe they hit someone when they were drinking one night, right? Like maybe if it's something like that and you hear it and you're like, oh my gosh, how could someone do that? But if you understand the feelings behind, well, how did they feel when it happened? What did they do after? That's what's going to tell you more about the character of that person than anything else. So that's one quick tip that I could give you on what to do in those situations.
I just think this is brilliant because so there's another person who is a dating coach who apparently did this viral video on TikTok, and he was like, never date any of these 12 people, right? And it was basically anyone who breathes by the time they're 40. It made me so mad because if I look at my husband, who I love super a lot, like he's my love of my life, like, yeah, like he had a DUI, like, you know, there's shit in his past, right? Yeah. And or somebody who is in recovery or whatever, because by the time you get to a certain age, you know, it's really hard to find someone with a perfect record. Do you know what I mean? Yes. And I just really want ladies to hear this, because if your standards are so high that you rule people out immediately, you know, and people can go on Google. I hear this all the time, right? Like they're like, nope. He said this. In fact, one of my clients who I love, and we're working on this, and she realized it. A guy, she went on one date with him, and then he had to cancel the next one because he needed to go do something with his mom. And she was like, I was a caretaker my whole life. Like, I don't want someone who has like all of these issues. And I was like, slow your roll. He's a human. What about the quality and characteristic and the value of someone who's taking care of his mom or whatever it is? And so I just really want you all to write this one down before you rule someone out. Be more curious and really be empathetic and see how that person responds to that, because there's nobody who's perfect.
No. And man, even just thinking about, is that how you want another person to judge you? Based on all of these things, you know, do I have to come with this perfect record in order? Yeah. That's exactly sort of what I'm teaching with this step of acceptance, right? It's that I can bring all of my ugly and my baggage and all of it, but the other person's going to see me as a human who's worthy and deserving of love. And into that, like, that's the key.
Because it's, what are you doing about it now? How have you changed? How are you growing? Right. Like, and what you said too about like, are we going to learn and grow together? So yeah, I just think this is so important, because if you just like follow that list, you may be single for a long ass time.
Or, yeah, that's right.
Okay, we went off the path. Right, exactly.
We went off the path.
But it's so important. Okay, go ahead, Kimberly.
Third step. We'll go to the third step of the love path, which is attachment. So we've become attracted, we feel accepted, and we can accept the other person for who they are. And now it's time to grow the bond that we have together through attachment. And there's a lot out there, more so now than ever in the history of content on the internet about attachment styles, which is something I've been studying for over 10 years. And it's, so that's part of this. It's how do we grow together? How do we show each other that we are going to do what's best for the future of the relationship, not what is best for me and my own self-interest. And when we trust that our spouse or our significant other is going to make the best decisions for the relationship, and we see them do that over time, then we trust them. We want to be committed to them. We want to be attached to them because we trust that they are going to be there for us when we need them, no matter what. And when you take attachment theory, trust, all of those things and boil it down, that's what it boils down to. Are you going to be there for me when I need you?
Yeah. And I think that's because, and I don't know the data on this, but, if you look at couple, but I have an example. I met these people on the road, and they're in their 80s, and they're living in an Airstream, which is so cool. And they were like, I was like, how do you get along? Right? How do you get along? And she was like, oh, well, before this, we lived on a boat. It was even smaller. But what she said was, at this point, after all we've been through together, there's really nothing left to fight about. I was like, I love that they've been married like 50 years or 60 years or something because they've had each other's back.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want. That's what we all want.
That's a mic drop moment.
I love that.
I know, right? Okay.
Okay.
So there's that to look forward to. Your ideal client is not 80, Kimberly, because there's nothing left to fight about.
Listen, we can all learn more from those people in their 70s, their 80s. They're not on Instagram. They're not on TikTok, but they have loads of wisdom that we need to access. That is for sure.
For sure. Okay. What else? I think we're only going to get through these 4 phases. And then I hope that you will come back so we can talk about more because you're like, you're a wise soul.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's go into the final step of the love path. So this one is aspiration. So all of these have started with an A. We did that to keep it easy for people to remember. So we had attraction, acceptance, attachment, and now we are at aspiration. And in this stage of the love path, it is all about having a shared dream or shared dreams, shared goals, and a vision for your future together. So just as you were saying earlier, is this what causes people to disconnect and to grow apart and all of those things? Well, here's what causes people to grow apart. When we start dating, we tend to have a shared goal for engagement, right? We're looking for that person we want to be with. When we get engaged, we tend to have a shared goal towards the wedding, the marriage, planning all of that. When we get married, we tend to have a shared goal for a period of time to maybe getting the house with the picket fence and 2.5 kids. But once we kind of achieve some of those beginning things in a relationship, what do we start looking towards that keeps us focused on the same thing as a couple? And the answer is, unless you're intentional about it, nothing. Instead, what happens is careers get involved, kids get involved, soccer camps, all of these different things that you have to do, just things you have to check on your list on a day-to-day basis. And life actually starts pulling you apart when you're not intentional about bringing it back together. And so the whole part of aspiration of this 4th phase is that you are intentional about bringing shared rituals into your marriage. What do I mean by shared rituals or your relationship? So what do I mean by that? It means, as an example, having family meal times every Sunday together, or doing date night every Friday night, or going camping together as a family every summer, doing something that you know is going to happen. It becomes a ritual in your relationship that continues to bring you back together. But even more than that, you can have a future shared goal, something that you want to work towards doing together. So like this RV thing, right?
Yes.
That you've met all these people on the road and there's these men who are saying, I want to do that. Well, in the most ideal world, the husband and the wife would share what their future dreams are, and then they would compromise on how they can do this together. So I have a friend. They live in an RV. So her and her husband live in an RV. So it's a real nice RV too. And so about 10 years ago, they came together. The husband said, I love going. I love traveling. I love being on the road. But the wife, she said, I'm such a homebody and I love having my stuff in the place that I want it to be. So what can we do? How can we compromise so that both of us are able to get what we want? And that's where they came up with working together, saying, let's live in an RV. And they've been living in it for 10 years. They've gone to almost all 50 states minus Hawaii or Alaska. But they've done all of these things together in an RV, and it's given them an aspiration. It's given them something to focus on that continues to bring them back together when life tries to pull them apart. Every couple needs this. And when we look at the research, we see that the couples who have this, who have aspirations that they're working towards together, actually have the highest levels of marital satisfaction than the couples who don't. So it's important to have what's going to bring you back together when life tries to pull you apart. But when we look at all of this as a love path together, we see that this isn't just something we check off each of the steps as we go along the way, and then at one day we complete it. This is a living, breathing path that we get back on every single day, starting with attraction. It's something that is constantly, all four of these stages are every day present in our relationships, and every day should be on the front of our minds of how do I work on the attraction, the acceptance, the attachment, and working towards aspirations together.
I'm in love. I'm in love with this and you. I think, it's funny is that one of the things that I teach my clients, and my husband and I have been doing it for about 7 years, is we do this annual, we call it like an annual clarity kind of retreat, where we sit down and we look at our year and we go like, what worked, what didn't work, what's our life vision? And it really, over the last 7 years, it continues to get us back on the same page in all these things. And even those conversations, right? There's the intellectual attraction, there's the acceptance, there's the negotiation, there's the compromise. And I think that that's been a really huge piece of creating success, because we are so very different. And there's so many unconventional things about us. And, but it's fun for me that you've labeled it against something, this aspiration, because I think shared common goals, is the heart for my relationship. What drives us is because we have this love of new and novel things and adventure, and it makes it really fun, and there's something to look forward to. And I think that's another piece, is that when you go through life just trying to check the boxes, and then you get to that box and you're like, oh, well, now what? You can think that it's another person that's going to make you happy, but it's not. Sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. It's us. So the other thing that I say all the time is, you can't control your spouse. You can't control your significant other. The only person that you can control is yourself, your behaviors, your actions, your reactions. And when you do the things to make the love path better from your part of it, then more than likely, as the way we say it is, if anything works, this will. If anything works to bring your relationship back on the love path, this is what works. But it starts with you doing the things that are going to put you back on the love path and will attract your spouse back to you, or your significant other back to you. That's what keeps you on the love path.
I love this. Oh my God. Well, I hope we can have Kimberly back because you're amazing. Ladies and guys, if you're listening, link to marriagehelper.com in the show notes, but go check it out. There's a lot of really cool stuff on Kimberly's site. And today's my anniversary. So what an
anniversary.
Thank you. Oh. What a lovely anniversary gift, just to remember all the things, like even rituals. I was saying, like my husband and I, in our neighborhood, we used to do a walk and talk after dinner.
Love it.
And so we were walking around a campsite the other night at dinner, and it's just like a loop, but it was really cool. Anyway, and I was like, oh, look, we're doing our walk and talk like in freaking Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Like peering into RVs, right? We're not on the same street in our neighborhood. And I just realized how the walk and talk is one of those rituals. So thank you for labeling and bringing to consciousness all these things that I knew about and for allowing me to learn so much on such a special day for me. So thank you, Kimberly. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Ladies, so first of all, if you're single, like there's clearly a lot more to look at than do you just want the ding dang in the wing wang. So as you're going through the dating process, re-listen to this episode so that you can, of course, life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.